At my daughter's wedding, when her groom loudly called me a local homeless person and his parents laughed at my modest clothes, the guests froze in shock. I just smiled, grabbed the microphone, and uttered one sentence. Their faces instantly turned pale. They couldn't believe their ears. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My hand rested on the brass door handle of the harbor room for 3 seconds longer than necessary. I smoothed my blazer, the navy one I'd worn to retirement dinners and funerals, and stepped inside. Mitchell saw me before I saw him. I caught it in my peripheral vision. That microsecond assessment, eyes traveling from my collar to my shoes and back again. His expression didn't change, but something behind it did. I'd seen that look in courtrooms, when defense attorneys realized they were working with weak evidence. Mr. Collins. He stood eventually, extending his hand with the enthusiasm of a man fulfilling a contractual obligation. His grip was brief, fingers barely engaging. Glad you could make it. Judy mentioned you prefer comfortable attire. My daughter rose quickly, kissing my cheek. Hi, Dad. You found it okay. I've lived in Charleston 62 years, sweetheart. I know where the restaurants are. We settled into our seats, Mitchell and Judy on one side, me across from them like a job interview. The position wasn't accidental. He wanted visual partnership with her. Wanted me isolated. I'd arranged interrogation rooms the same way. So Mitchell leaned back, one arm draped across the booth behind Judy. Judy tells me you recently retired. Last year. 30 years in the prosecutor's office. That must be quite an adjustment. He glanced at his phone, screen lighting his face. Different pace, I imagine. Different, yes, not slower. Judy touched Mitchell's arm, her fingers light on his sleeve. Mitchell just closed a massive investment deal. Tell Dad about it, honey. Well, he said, and his posture shifted, shoulders back, chin up. This was his territory. Financial consulting is where real impact happens. We just restructured a portfolio worth $8 million. Numbers don't lie, unlike people in courtrooms. I let that one sit. Judy laughed, a sound I didn't recognize. Dad worked on some big cases, though. She offered, but her voice carried no conviction. She was checking the box, including me out of obligation. I'm sure. Mitchell's eyes drifted over my shoulder, tracking a waiter. Though I suspect prosecution doesn't exactly translate to private sector compensation. He smiled, not unkind. Worse, pitying. The next 40 minutes followed a pattern. I would begin a sentence. Judy would interrupt. Mitchell would redirect to his achievements. The clients, the properties, the investment strategies only sophisticated people understood. When I mentioned a case involving securities fraud, he nodded with the patience of a kindergarten teacher listening to a child describe their drawing. That's fascinating, he said, which meant it wasn't. His phone buzzed twice during my stories. He checked it both times. When he spoke, Judy angled toward him, her body a closed parenthesis. I wasn't inside. The waiter brought the check in a leather folder. $280 for my half. 3 appetizers, 2 entrees, wine I hadn't ordered. I reached for my wallet, the leather soft and cracked from decades in my pocket. Let me cover my half. It's only fair. Mitchell's hand waved dismissively, already producing a platinum card that caught the light. No need, Mr. Collins. His smile widened, generous and condescending in equal measure. I understand that on a pension, $280 might be significant. My treat. The card hit the folder with a decisive snap. I looked at Judy, waited for her to say something. Anything. She was looking at Mitchell, her expression warm with approval. That's so generous of you, honey. She didn't glance my way, didn't acknowledge what he'd implied, that I couldn't afford dinner, that I was financially fragile, that his money made him better. The insult hung in the air like cigarette smoke, visible to everyone, ignored by her. Well, I folded my napkin, placed it beside my plate. Thank you for dinner. Anytime. Mitchell signed a receipt with a flourish. We should do this again. Maybe somewhere more casual next time. I know these upscale places can feel uncomfortable. Judy smiled. Still didn't look at me. They left together. Mitchell's hand on the small of her back. Judy laughing at something he murmured. She didn't turn around. I walked to my car alone. My 10-year-old sedan parked between a Mercedes and a BMW. The drive home took 20 minutes. I didn't turn on the radio. My hands were steady on the wheel, my breathing even, but my mind was working, processing patterns the way it had for 30 years in courtrooms. Mitchell wasn't just arrogant. He was strategic. Every comment calculated, every gesture deliberate. He'd positioned himself above me from the moment I walked in, and Judy had helped him do it. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the darkness, engine ticking as it cooled. One thought surfaced, clear and cold. I know exactly what Mitchell is. The question was, does Judy? The week that followed the dinner moved like cold molasses. I went through routines. Morning coffee on the porch, afternoon walk through the neighborhood, evening news in my recliner. But my mind kept circling back to Mitchell's smile when he waved away my money. That patronizing smile. When Judy called on Tuesday saying she needed to talk, I told myself I was overthinking. Young couple nervous about family dynamics. Normal. She arrived Wednesday morning at 10, her car pulling into the driveway with a quickness that suggested urgency. I met her at the door. Dad. Her smile was enormous, genuine. Mitchell proposed. The happiness hit me before thought could temper it. My arms opened automatically. Judy, that's wonderful. Come here. She stepped into the hug, and for 5 seconds, we were just father and daughter celebrating good news. Then she pulled back, and I saw the tension in her shoulders. Let's sit down, she said. There's a lot to talk about. We moved to the living room. She perched on the edge of the sofa, hands clasped. I took my usual chair, still smiling. So, when's the wedding? Have you set a date? August 15th. I know it's fast, but Mitchell's parents wanted summer, and the venue had an opening. Which venue? Charleston Harbor Club. She said it quickly, watching my face. Mitchell's parents are covering everything, so you don't need to worry about costs. Something in my chest tightened. I wasn't worried about costs. I'm your father. I know, Dad. I just mean. She looked at her hands. It's going to be really nice. Elegant black tie. I can rent a tuxedo, Judy. Of course, that's not. She stopped, recalibrated. Mitchell's family has certain expectations. Traditional. His parents, Willard and Helen, they're very involved in Charleston, in society. The guest list is specific. I waited. In interrogations, silence makes people reveal more than questions do. It's intimate, she continued. Very small. About 80 people. So some of your friends, Marcus, the Johnsons, people from the prosecutor's office. The venue has capacity limits. Which friends aren't invited, Judy? It's not personal. Mitchell's family has so many relatives and business associates, and the venue restrictions. You're saying my friends can't come to your wedding? Her jaw tightened. I'm saying it's a small wedding. Mitchell's parents are paying $45,000. They get input on the guest list. I stood, needing distance, and walked to the kitchen. My hands found a glass, filled it with water I didn't want. Behind me, Judy's voice followed. Also, Mitchell suggested, and I agree, that we keep the aesthetic cohesive, so photographs look unified. Maybe something understated in what you wear, so you don't stand out. The glass felt heavy in my hand. You want me to dress modestly at my daughter's wedding so I don't embarrass you? That's not what I said. It's what you meant. I turned. She was standing now, defensive, arms crossed. Mitchell's world is different from yours, Dad. That's just reality. I'm trying to navigate between both, and it would help if you understood that. I understand perfectly. She left 10 minutes later. I watched her car disappear and felt something shift in my chest, recognition of patterns I'd ignored because she was my daughter. 2 days later, I pulled into my driveway and heard her voice. The living room window was open. I know. She sounded delighted. Dad's blazers are from the 90s. I swear one still has shoulder pads. I'll handle it diplomatically. Keep him from the receiving line, where people take photos. Silence. He won't be at the head table anyway. Your parents, my bridal party. That's plenty. We'll put Dad with some of your parents' distant cousins. He'll be fine. You're right. It's better this way. He wouldn't be comfortable around the Harbor Club crowd anyway. We're doing him a favor. I stood in my driveway, keys in hand, and listened to my daughter mock me to her fiancé. That evening, I sat at the dining room table. The hurt was still there, but underneath it, something cold and familiar was crystallizing. I pulled a cardboard box of old case files from the closet and spread them across the table. 30 years of building cases, finding weaknesses in seemingly perfect defenses. I pulled a fresh legal pad and clicked my pen. At the top of the page, I wrote 3 words: Mitchell, Willard, Helen. Below that, a single question: what are they hiding? The next morning, I began my systematic investigation. Charleston County Records Office. I searched business registrations for Harrington and Associates, Incorporated. Principal officers: Willard J. Harrington and Helen M. Harrington. Civil Court Archives. I found 2 client complaints, both settled pretrial. $85,000 and $120,000. Companies don't pay that kind of money unless they're hiding something worse. I also found Mitchell's personal tax dispute from 3 years back. Former colleague, Marcus Webb, I called Marcus. He confirmed the Harringtons sail close to the wind. Very aggressive tax strategies. They always settle before it goes anywhere. Tax attorney, Robert Chun. I paid Robert Chun $1,400 cash. He reviewed the aggressive deductions. 1 thorough audit, and they'd face serious penalties. $40,000 to $60,000 in fines, possibly more. He added that an anonymous tip with specific documentation could trigger an audit. Weeks passed. Judy repeatedly canceled our scheduled dinners. I kept my tone pleasant. I drove to Worthington and Sons Fine Silver and bought the most expensive sterling set. 12 place settings, $2,800. I wrote 4 words on the card. For your new home. Love, Dad. 2 days later, Judy called, confused. Dad, the silver service, it's beautiful, but it's so expensive. You didn't need to. I wanted you to have something nice, something that lasts. After we hung up, I smiled. Let them wonder. Mitchell was recalculating his assumptions about me. 2 days later, the invitation arrived. Mr. and Mrs. Willard Harrington request your presence at a rehearsal dinner. Now I had names and an address in the most exclusive part of Charleston. I called the number on the invitation to confirm. Of course I'll be there, I told Helen. I'm looking forward to meeting you both. I dressed carefully for the rehearsal dinner, letting them see what they expected. The Harrington estate was a colonial-style mansion, glowing against the evening sky. Mitchell answered the door, leading me inside. Mom, Dad, Judy's father is here. Willard, tall and silver-haired, and Helen, elegant in silk, emerged. Sylvester. Helen's smile was professionally warm. Wonderful to finally meet you. Don't mind the construction noise. We're adding a wine cellar. $80,000. Dinner was served in a formal dining room. Willard, at the head of the table, poured wine. Noble work truly. But let's be honest, not the most lucrative path. Am I right? I did well enough. Retirement's comfortable. Helen touched Willard's arm. Of course you did, and you raised Judy beautifully despite, well, circumstances. Single parent, modest means, that takes real character. She made poverty sound like a disability. Judy sat across, posture defensive, avoiding my eyes. The conversation revolved around Tuscany, market returns, and Mitchell's client acquisitions. Helen announced the honeymoon gift, the villa rental in Santorini. She's never been to Greece. That'll change now. On the veranda, Helen appeared beside us. Sylvester, I wanted to mention your suit for the wedding. Do you have something appropriate? I'll be fine. Of course, she smiled. But if you need, our tailor has a lovely discount section. Very dignified options. Budget-friendly. She said it in front of Judy. I watched my daughter's face. Her cheeks colored. She looked at the floor, and she said nothing. Mitchell glanced over, smirked, and returned to his conversation. That's thoughtful of you, I told Helen. I'll keep it in mind. I drove back to Charleston, but stopped downtown at Blackwell and Sons Custom Tailoring. I need a suit, I told the tailor. Something excellent, not flashy, just quality. I selected charcoal wool. $890. ready in 4 days. At home, I spread my investigation materials one final time. Chen's analysis, the business vulnerabilities, the casual cruelties. I filled 12 pages, mapping every step. At the top of the first page, I wrote, "What's the appropriate penalty for contempt?" Below it, public humiliation followed by systematic dismantling. The morning of the wedding, I dressed in the new suit. It fit perfectly, unmistakably quality. At the Charleston Harbor Club, I sat in the back row. Judy looked beautiful walking down the aisle. For those 30 seconds, I forgot everything and just watched my daughter. At the reception, a coordinator directed me to table 18 near the service entrance, far from the head table. I watched the room. Around 7, Mitchell worked the crowd, champagne in hand. His voice carried, alcohol amplified. "You see that guy over by the columns? That's my father-in-law. Looks like we should have given him directions to the homeless shelter, right?" The groomsmen laughed. People at nearby tables turned. Helen's table was 15 feet away. I watched her lean toward her companions, voice modulated to carry. "Well, the suit is certainly economical. We offered to help, but—" She shrugged, letting the implication hang. The laughter spread, social warfare. I looked for Judy. She stood near the cake table, her back to Mitchell's performance, her shoulders tight. She'd heard. She turned slightly, saw me watching, then turned further away and engaged intensely with her friend. She made a choice right there in that moment. I stood. Conversations paused. Heads turned. I expected them to leave quietly, I suppose. Dignified retreat. Instead, I walked across the dance floor. My steps were measured, unhurried. The crowd parted slightly. I could feel every eye tracking me. I approached the band leader. "May I borrow that for a moment?" I faced the room. Conversations died in waves. "I want to congratulate the newlyweds and thank the Harrington family for this beautiful event." Mitchell's face had frozen mid-smile. Willard leaned forward. "You know, 30 years as a prosecutor taught me to recognize people's true value." I paused, found Mitchell's eyes. Not by their clothing or their bank accounts, but by their decency, by how they treat people who can't benefit them. The silence was complete. "Judy," I looked at my daughter. "I've always wanted the very best for you. I hope you found exactly that." I crossed to the head table, wrapped my arms around Judy. She stood rigid, hands at her sides. I released her, nodded once to Mitchell, and walked back across the dance floor. The doors closed behind me with a soft click. I retrieved my car and drove directly to the 24-hour FedEx office. The manila envelopes were already prepared. I dropped them in the overnight slot. Internal Revenue Service, Charleston Division, and the Charleston Better Business Bureau, both containing detailed documentation. The wedding had been Mitchell's game. This was mine. Sunday morning, I opened my laptop. I spread Robert Chen's notes and finalized the IRS complaint form. I wrote carefully, documenting potential misclassification of income and questionable entertainment and home office deductions. 8 pages, specific line items, tax code references, the kind of complaint that triggers mandatory review. The Better Business Bureau complaint was simpler. Aggressive sales tactics and minimal disclosure of fee structures. Anonymous, but requiring investigation. I printed, signed, and submitted everything. For 3 days, I maintained normal routines. Thursday afternoon, I was deadheading roses when my phone rang. Willard's voice was controlled but tight. "Sylvester, I wanted to thank you again for attending the wedding. Your speech was memorable. We've just received notice of a tax audit. Quite thorough, apparently. 3 years of returns. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that." I kept my voice perfectly mild. "Tax audits? That's unfortunate. But you run an honest business, don't you? I'm sure it's routine." "Routine?" His tone hardened. "Right. If your books are clean, you have nothing to worry about. Though I hear these things can take months, and the legal fees can be significant. But I'm sure you're prepared for that." Silence stretched. "This is about Mitchell's behavior at the wedding. This is about a pattern of behavior. Your son's, your wife's, yours. You thought I was weak because I was quiet. That's a common mistake. What do you want?" "Want? Nothing from you. I just want you to understand something. I spent 3 decades building cases against people who thought they were untouchable. And I never lost a case I built carefully, Willard. Not once in 30 years. The audit will find everything in order, he said finally. Will it? Then you've got nothing to worry about. Though even clean audits take time. 8 months typically. And you'll need to hire specialists. Tax attorneys don't come cheap. Probably $60,000 to $70,000 in legal fees before it's done. You're a vindictive man. No, I'm a thorough one. There's a difference. How's the honeymoon going? Greece is beautiful this time of year. He hung up. I went inside and opened a new document. Anticipated counter moves. Men like Willard retaliate. I'd be ready. Folks saying you're well fixated on your daughter's new in-laws, making accusations. That doesn't sound like you. What kind of accusations, Jim? Tax fraud, unethical business practices. Look, if you're struggling with Judy's marriage, there are healthier ways to process. The calls were coordinated. Mitchell was working his connections. Helen was weaponizing her social network. They were painting me as unstable and obsessive, character assassination disguised as concern. That afternoon, Sandra Martinez was more direct. Sylvester, cut through the noise. Did you file an IRS complaint against Harrington and Associates? I exercised my rights as a citizen to report potential irregularities. That's not illegal, Sandra. It's civic duty. Just be careful. You're building a reputation you might regret. 2 days later, Judy called. Dad, what are you doing? Mitchell says you're spreading lies about his family. Why can't you just be happy for me? I'm happy for you, Judy. I'm not happy about being called homeless in front of 100 people. That was a joke. You're overreacting. Was it? Because everyone laughed, including his parents. And you said nothing. Helen says you might need help. That your behavior is concerning. Since when is Helen your source on my mental health? My voice was level. You filed some kind of complaint against Mitchell's family business. Dad, that's crazy. I filed a legitimate complaint about questionable tax practices. If they have nothing to hide then. You're trying to ruin my marriage. No, I said, looking at the roses. I'm defending my dignity. If that threatens Mitchell's family, maybe ask yourself why. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry you feel that way. Feel as if facts were feelings. She hung up. The line between us was cut. She'd chosen. That evening, I composed an email from an anonymous account, addressed to Sarah Chun, business reporter at the Charleston Business Journal. The body was brief, attaching links to public records and confirming the ongoing IRS audit and BBB complaints. The next morning, I sent it from the library. By noon, Sarah Chun was calling Harrington and Associates for comment. The Charleston Business Journal ran the story on Monday. Headline: Local investment firm under federal audit. The business community was small enough that the implication was clear. I monitored the fallout. LinkedIn showed Palmetto Property Group removing their connection to Harrington Associates. Coastal Holdings terminated a contract. $180,000 in annual revenue gone. Harrington hired Morrison and Blackwell, an expensive tax law firm, $650 per hour. The preliminary audit found violations, aggressive depreciation, questionable home office deductions, projected penalties, $47,000. Legal fees already over $30,000. Friday afternoon, Mitchell arrived. I opened the door, but offered neither a seat nor refreshment. He stood awkwardly while I settled into my chair. Look, I know I made some jokes at the wedding. I apologize. Can we move past this? You called me a homeless man, I said flatly. Your parents laughed. Judy said nothing. That wasn't champagne. That was who you are. His smile cracked. Fine, you're upset. I get it. But this IRS thing, the Business Journal article, that's too far. You're hurting Judy, too. We're losing clients. My income. I filed a legitimate complaint about questionable tax practices. If the IRS found problems, that's between your firm and them. You know exactly what you're doing. This is revenge. His voice rose. Ruin you? No, I'm holding you accountable. There's a difference. He paced. What do you want? Money? An apology in front of people? What? I don't want anything from you, Mitchell. Then why? Because you thought I was an old fool you could humiliate without consequence. You were wrong. I practiced law for 30 years. I know how to use it. I haven't done anything illegal. I simply exercise my rights as a citizen. He deflated. You're destroying my family's business over a joke. I'm exposing problems that already existed. If a joke can destroy your business was already fragile. Please, he said quietly. Judy's caught in the middle of this. She's falling apart. Then she should have defended me when you mocked me. She knew. She chose silence. You're a vindictive man. I'm a thorough one, I corrected. You wanted to see what I was made of. Now you know. Mitchell left without another word. I sat on my porch, finished a rare bourbon. Victory didn't taste sweet. It tasted necessary. I was documenting the encounter when Judy called. Please, you have to stop. Mitchell's family is falling apart. I don't know what to do. Judy, I love you, but I can't stop. Not until they understand you can't humiliate people without consequences. But I'm the one suffering. This is my marriage. Then you should have defended me at the wedding. The line went dead. The strategy worked with brutal efficiency. Financial collapse. 3 more major clients, Seabrook, Charleston Capital, Heritage Financial, left, costing the firm $250,000 in annual revenue. Social ruin. Helen Harrington resigned from the charitable committee due to financial concerns. Her carefully constructed social status was crumbling, hurting her more than the money itself. The marriage. Judy called again, her voice raw. Mitchell's family is falling apart. Mitchell says you did this. Please tell me he's wrong. I filed legitimate complaints about questionable business practices. That's all. Their reputation is destroyed. Why? Because of a joke at the wedding? That's insane. He called me homeless, Judy, in front of 100 people. His parents laughed. And you turned away. You pretended not to hear. You chose their money and their status over my dignity. I'm not destroying anything, I told her. I'm holding them accountable. If they're honest, they'll survive. If they're not, they'll pay the price. That's how the world works. She hung up, sobbing. I continued documenting. The business was bleeding out. I filed a Freedom of Information request for the audit conclusion. The final report confirmed $47,000 in penalties for improper deductions, $31,000 in back taxes owed, permanent negative marks on their compliance record. It wasn't criminal, but it was permanent. The Harringtons' arrogance had been exposed and penalized by the system I knew so well. I sat on my front porch when Judy's sedan pulled into the driveway. She climbed the steps, and we sat in silence. The audit finished, she said. They had to pay almost $80,000. 8 clients left. Mitchell's bonus is gone. His parents are talking about selling the beach house. I know, I said quietly. I understand now. She looked at her hands. What you felt when Mitchell said that, when everyone laughed, when I didn't. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't change what happened. It just means you finally see it clearly. Mitchell says you destroyed them. No, I held them responsible. They destroyed themselves with their arrogance. The IRS found real violations, she said. Mitchell finally admitted that. Said his dad always pushed boundaries with deductions. Then they got caught. That's not revenge. That's accountability. What about us? Can we? Is there an us anymore? I reached over and took her hand. I'm still your father. That doesn't change. But I won't pretend that wedding didn't happen. I won't forget that you chose their comfort over my dignity. If you truly understand what happened, not just that I'm hurt, but why I acted, then yes, we can start over. But it won't be the same. I'm not your punching bag, and I'm not their joke. Those boundaries don't move. She squeezed back. I understand. The ultimate consequence was that the Harrington family business was financially wounded and socially humiliated, forcing them to face the consequences of their arrogance. As for Judy and Mitchell, their marriage survived the honeymoon, but was now permanently fractured by a loss of trust and respect. leading Judy to finally see her father's value and the flaws in her new life. The conclusion of the story centers on the immediate aftermath of the confrontation and the fragile state of the father-daughter relationship and Judy's marriage. The father and Judy sat in silence as the orange light of sunset turned to purple. The state of the marriage. When asked, Judy admitted her marriage to Mitchell was strained. Mitchell was angry at everyone, but also scared because his world, based on his family's reputation and money, was now damaged. Judy, however, did not seem convinced this hardship would lead to genuine change in Mitchell. The start of honesty. Judy stood to leave, but before she went, she resolved to tell Mitchell she had been with her father. This was a small honesty, but a start. She kissed her father's forehead, a gesture of affection not seen since her childhood, and asked if she could return the following week. The father's reflection alone, the father realized he did not feel victorious. He believed he had simply refused to be humiliated without consequence, and had defended his dignity. He felt he had taught Judy a lesson about real strength, the kind that comes from knowing your worth, not from money or status. He was content for now that this peace was enough. The primary outcome of the entire conflict was the shift from a focus on financial status to a focus on personal dignity and accountability. The Harringtons' fate. Mitchell and his parents faced systematic consequences for their arrogance and questionable business practices, the IRS audit, financial penalties, loss of clients, and social ruin. The father's action was not simple revenge, but a thorough demonstration of accountability through legal channels. Judy's choice. Judy's silence at the wedding was the crucial point of betrayal. Her father's action forced her to confront the value of her marriage versus the value of her father's dignity. By the end, she had achieved a measure of understanding and sorrow, accepting that while her father still loved her, their relationship would not be the same due to the choices she made. The final meeting sets a boundary for a renewed relationship built on respect, not obligation or wealth.